was something else you touched on when we were talking a moment ago, Ross, that we can't let it go by because it's such an important theme and it comes up a lot, and you put it so eloquently. And it's what I'm going to label resilience. But you talked there about the fact of now just having things, or knowing yourself enough, having that self-awareness to know what are the things that you do to be kind to yourself when crap happens. Because you know what? It does. And this is the thing as well. It's often a long, a fair way into a coaching engagement that people have this kind of breakthrough moment that it's not about the relentless pursuit of permanent happiness. It's about being able to do stuff and have life, because some people are a bit sucky and are mean to you, and some circumstances you can't control, and things happen, and global pandemics happen, and then we all suddenly end up on the back foot. But it's about how do you handle, how much and how long and how perpetually are you affected negatively by them, and what do you have at your disposal to kind of restore a bit of your own energy, insight and optimism. So can we just talk a little bit about that as well? So what are those kind of conscious, deliberate things that you found have helped feed into your resilience?
I think it's a lot to do with how you frame it. And I think, as Vafa was saying, this sort of success versus failure, and actually realizing what I was considering as failures were points to learn from and to grow from. And I don't know, I've been quite enjoying the sort of stoic mindset of the, no one particular experience is good or bad, but thinking makes it so, the whole William Shakespeare quote thing as well. But it's very true. And because now I can look back at all the times which I've considered really difficult and bad at the time, but actually those were really the character defining moments, much more so than any of the obviously pleasurable moments like going skiing on a mountain or all these wonderful things. It's tested my reserve, and it's allowed me to kind of be a bit more calm and just take the ego out of things. I spend quite a lot of time on a daily basis, maybe about half an hour or so, just trying to listen to my thoughts and realize just because I'm thinking this way doesn't mean that it is fact. But it's a useful technique just to sort of see it like a canvas, and your thoughts are the paint that the sort of paint strokes that you paint on your canvas of your mind, and as you just allow it to soak in and then evaporate, and you don't need to see it as something that's there.
I love that.
That's a wonderful metaphor. It's and I think some people find metaphor very powerful and very helpful to help them just arrange thoughts that otherwise are quite hard to wrap language around. I hadn't heard that one about the paint and the canvas before. I think that's fun. That's going in the bank. The ones I have.
I love the metaphors.
No. And for people, another one that's.
Is this a good metaphor? And
It is.
Some of them are pretty abstract.
Another one that's really lovely is the chessboard one as well. So you're familiar with watching a game of chess being fought out on the board, and the trials and tribulations of all the pieces on the board, and we would probably we think of ourselves as one of those pieces in the middle of that fight. But what if we're the board? What if the fight goes on continually and the pieces will go back in the box, and there'll be another fight tomorrow? We're the board, unchanging, unaffected by those things that come and go. And the other one is sky and weather. Are you the weather or are you the sky? Sort of thing. But it's all around, and you touched on the kind of whole stoic thing as well. And yes, I think on a shelf near me are a few books with just rammed full of those quotes. But it boils down to this too shall pass. There's someone somewhere who was in more anguish yesterday than I am today, and today they're feeling better. It kind of, it does pass. We might still have work to do to kind of work out what we're going to do. We might still have work to do to help ourselves become more resilient, but the thoughts aren't real. I was once talking to turn of events, a golf coach, someone who teaches people how to their golf swing and all the rest of it. We were chatting away, and he was asking what I do, and I was asking what he does. And he used this phrase, "feel ain't real." It's something he says a lot of times to people trying to learn a golf swing. They're convinced that they've made the change that he's asked them to because that's what they're feeling. And he's there with a machine measuring the exact angle and the speed of impact going, nope, feel ain't real. Your brain will tell you something different to what's actually going on. Mm-hmm. And we ended up talking for an hour about how that's analogous to people working on themselves and people working with their conscious thoughts about what's real and what's not real. So yeah, interesting. Yeah, I, like you, the power of metaphor can be huge, but not for everyone. Doesn't work for everyone. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Similarly, when we're talking there about, you were talking about things that you'd labelled failure and coming to realise that they're not failure. Now, what I've learned is that some people really struggle with this because they're so tightly bound up in the language and the definitions of it, but that's okay. So when they read stuff like, don't be afraid to fail 20 times, because they can't detach from the association with the word failure. They're like, no, I failed twice and it nearly killed me inside. I can't possibly take that route. But then fine, don't call it failure. You call it something else. So for some people, it's about calling it something else. Say, well, that wasn't failure. It was merely a step on the way. Some people really struggle to detach from those definitions. So it's like, fine. So they have to become resilient with failing many times and doing so deliberately. And there's a lot of writing on this at the moment, isn't there, about sort of turning failure into either redefining it or just expecting it's going to happen. What do you do the day after perfection? So if your plan is that it will go like this, guess what? Most things don't go exactly how you expect them to. What thought has gone into, what do I do the day after the world doesn't look like that anymore? How am I going to respond? What am I going to do? What's my plan to be resilient? All these kinds of things.